This video will show you how to make a octagonal rod case for your fishing pole. These are just absolutely gorgeous, and it's the shape that a rod case should be. It only takes a couple board feet of wood, so even selecting an exotic wood won't cost you very much. You can build one of these in a weekend. I've included a countdown timer, so you can skip over the portions that you're not interested in at this time. I not only include the octagonal dimensions, but also formulas for making a hexagon. The process is the same, just the dimensions are different. Enjoy making your rod case. Don't panic, you don't need to know trigonometry to build an octagonal rod case. What you do need to know is what you want your inside diameter, known by the letters ID, of your rod case to be, and that's from this surface here to this surface here. Using this formula, you can calculate the outside width of your slats, and that would be the distance from here to here. This formula is based on the thickness being 1/4 inch, and that's known by the little letter T. If you want a thicker or thinner case, substitute the dimension of the thickness of your case into this formula and use it. For the rod case I built, I did use the thickness of 1/4, that's pretty common, and I wanted an inside diameter of 1 5/8. So I put that into the equation, and I ended up with a width of my slats being 7/8. And that's shown here. The one thing I do want to say is this angle here, 22.5 degrees, is always 22.5 degrees no matter what the thickness is or the inside diameter is. Out in the wood shop right now, I looked through all the hardwood I had. I have a piece of hardwood lumber called Monsania. I got 6, and it's 3/4 inch thick. But I need to get 8 slats out of this. I was first going to rip it down and get pieces 1 1/8. I can get 4 rips out of that one piece of wood, and then split them down the middle in half, and that'll get me a little bit more of a 1/4 in widths. So I've got my 8 pieces. They are 1 1/8, just like planned, and the thickness ended up being about 5/16. With all of our prep work done, I now have 8 of these that are 1/4 inch thick and 1 1/8 inch wide. I'm setting up my table saw so that the inside of the rod case will be on the table, and then the blade will be going this direction here at 23 degrees. So this first cut is going to be as wide as I can get it, probably down to 1 inch. So it'll be the square side here to that point. And then we'll readjust our table saw and go to the actual final dimension of 7/8. The reason I set this angle at 23 degrees instead of the exact 22.5 is to make sure that I get these points on the outside of the rod case to connect. And then this, of course, will just be filled in with glue. So take your time setting up the table saw. I got a feather board here to keep it down, and then this one to keep it up against the fence. All right, I now have 8 of these strips. This is 7/8 across the top, and the thickness is 1/4 inch. With our 8 pieces cut to length, I've got the outside of the rod case side up. Now, our special tool for putting this all together is some shipping tape. What you want to do is take a strip of the tape. Now on one end, you want to fold that so we have a little lip so we can easily pull it off and on if we need to. We'll start with this piece here. Now it won't hang off the edge of this piece. Okay. And we'll bring the next one close to it, making sure they're tight. Okay. Then the third one, push down on them and together. And then the last piece. I'll do a center piece. Do a final check and go through these and rub every one to make sure you're in contact with it. And we're going to flip it over. All right, now we're just going to roll it over. Bring up the other end. And we need to pull. Now, just to make sure that it goes round on us, I'll put some zip ties on it. You might think that's kind of overkill, but it really does want to be round. And if we make it tight, then it will be, because that's the natural tendency for these joints when they want to go together here. So when you do your zip tie, have it right there, not on a crease. I probably overglued it. Now, all that glue that's in the middle, and there's a ton of it, just take your rag here and this one's dry, and we're just going to push that on through. I normally don't do the zip ties But this thing wanted to become oblong. I mean, I wanted to flatten out a little bit. So by adding the zip ties, it all pulls it together and makes it look, and makes it round. It's been about 3 hours. Going to clip off our zip ties, and before when I said you want to attach your zip ties so that the flat part is where the zip tie comes together, that way you can just easily get in there with some snips and snip them off. I'm going to pull those off. I'll do a close-up. You can see where the joints come together. Those are really tight. Once in a while you'll get a gap there. This one's overlapped just a little bit there. So when we sand it off, it'll be less transparent. But overall, some of these joints are nice and tight. We got a nice octagon, and then let's see if our math paid off. Inside diameter is 1 5/8. So God bless trigonometry. For my 9-foot 3-piece rod, as a minimum, this needs to be 38 inches, 3/4 for my end caps, plus 37 inches for my rod. And then a little bit of room. Well, I'm going to go with 38.5 inches. Previously in the video, I had recommended saving the pieces off the ends that we cut off on our rod case. And we will use these as a template for each end cap on the rod case. Now you could go ahead and just use the rod case itself. It's just easier to manage with these things. Now one thing nice about an octagon, it is just basically a square with the corners cut off. So we can actually use our miter saw and table saw instead of the band saw to cut this. We just got to make sure we adjust our angles and stuff to match what this end cap is doing. With my caps cut out, you can see where I left a 16th or 32nd all the way around it, leaving the pencil marks. That way it'll extend past the rod case and I can sand it down to be even. So this side will be going into the rod case on the ends. Now what I'm going to do with the router, I'm going to set my router for a depth of 3/8 of an inch on one of them. That will go on the bottom. So 3/8 on this one will be the depth, and 1/4 on this one for the cap that'll come on and off. So what we'll do is on the side that's going in the rod case, we're going to take our router and go around the perimeter, cutting out a width here of at least 1/4 to start out with, and we'll probably have to go a little bit more. I'm using a relatively small bit. It's just under 1/4 inch, probably 7/32. Here's my setup. Right now I got it set for 1/4 inch in height. I made a miniature fence here. This ensures I'll have contact with this surface against the fence as much as possible. So after very slow iterations, you can see I've got them all sticking out a little bit so I can sand it down. So I got it all glued up and we'll wait for it overnight. The end cap on the rod has dried overnight, and I've taped on the top cap while I sand it so it'll be even with the rod case. I finished sanding it and I put a teak oil on it. Notice how the caps are nice and tight. Here's the lid. That again lines up all nice, fairly tight in there. On my strap, I have a button that has a pin coming out. That pin comes up through a hole in the leather, and then this receptacle portion of the snap goes on top of that, and then the pin is mushroomed out with this tool. On the rod, you have a plug piece that goes in the snap. It's held in place with a screw. You just drill a hole in the diameter of the screw shank and put it in there, take it out, cut it to length,